Hey, how'd you get in my house? What? Oh, oh, my apologies. My name's Brandon. On Monday, March 11th, head football coaching legend, the greatest college football coach of all time, Nick Saban, was in Washington, D.C. for a Capitol Hill roundtable discussion on NIL and the current landscape of college football. And if you've followed Alabama football or if you've heard any news from Nick Saban over the past few years, you know that he's been kind of vocal about the way the sport is going. He's kind of been sort of negative towards the changes, both with NIL and paying players, the collectives, the transfer portal as well, which now is just all over the place. Free game, you can go wherever you want, basically whenever you want. But he had some interesting quotes here, and I'm going to read a couple of them to you. The first one here from Nick Saban at the Capitol Hill Roundtable discussion. Well, all the things that I believed in for all these years, 50 years of coaching, no longer exist in college athletics. It was always about developing players. It was always about helping people be more successful in life. My wife even said to me, we'd have all the recruits over on Sunday with their parents for breakfast. She would always meet with the mothers and talk about how she would help impact their sons and that they would be well taken care of. She came to me right before I retired and said, why are we doing this? I said, what do you mean? She said, all they care about is how much you are going to pay them. They don't care how much you're going to develop them or anything about their development, which is what we've always done. So why are we doing this? So this is something, this being NIL in its current form, is something that has, I would say, affected the Alabama Crimson Tide with Nick Saban at the helm. Because for years and years and years, they had this dynasty going, this pipeline. You were going to go to Alabama. If you're a 5-star, there was a good chance you were going to go there. And they constantly had that, and what they had to offer to the players was one, great coaching, great future development, for not just for the game of football, but for life. You had the best facilities, a huge stadium, passionate fans, among so many other things. And now it's not as much that as it is certain other things. Now, I say that there are over 10,000 college football players, in the game right now in FBS. So to sit here and say that all of them are like that all of them are going to, just going for the bag, that would be incorrect, obviously. There are a lot of people that have passion about the sport as a whole. They just want to play the sport. They're driven, motivated by that, and they're not just looking for a payday. Now, with that being said, I am not against NIL. Not at all. I think it was a good thing when the states stepped up, the government stepped up and said, you know what? The NCAA says that these players can't be paid for their name, image, and likeness, for their work, hard work on the field, on the court, because this isn't just about football, it's about all college sports as a whole. But when the states started voting to allow players to be compensated, I thought that was a great thing. Now, what form that ended up taking, it kind of went all over the place because there was nothing, there was nobody controlling it. So you had these collectives forming, and you have collectives from every major college university. I guess the deal is a college cannot directly pay a player, but through the collective, they can be compensated. So it's kind of a workaround sort of at this point. And I do understand where Saban is coming from this. And he had another quote where he brought up something about revenue sharing, and I thought that was interesting. They were kind of starting to begin to have a little bit of a disadvantage because certain players might not go to Alabama because they may have a better financial situation somewhere else, and that was something that was, unheard of. But also the fact that you work so hard to recruit all these players in, and then you have to re-recruit your own players after every season, and that was taking a toll on Nick. And he was getting old. I think he was really looking for a good time to retire anyway. But I think he sees how the sport was going, and I can understand sort of where he was, feeling on that, and that maybe this was the right time to step out before it gets too crazy. But this other quote right here, in a later interview after this roundtable discussion, he was talking about revenue sharing, which is something that has been brought up briefly. Now, this is something that really is probably the future when everything comes together. If there's some new governing body outside of the NCAA that controls all this, this could be one good option of many good options. But his quote right here, Saban's quote, "I'm for college athletes, and I'm for college athletes having a seat at the table to try to come up with a solution to all of this," he said. "But instead of having a collective-driven name, image, and likeness system, I thought a revenue sharing with name, image, and likeness would be a lot better system than what we currently have, and we would be able to continue to support athletes and athletics in all sports." He went a little bit further and said, "Football and basketball are going to be fine because they're revenue producing. But all the non-revenue sports have always been funded by the revenue sports. And we want to be able to continue to do that. So we've got to come up with a system that allows us to do that. And people giving us all this money to collectives can give it back to the athletic department or to the university in some way that will be beneficial to creating opportunities for student athletes and helping them be successful." I agree with what Nick says there. I think that all sports, all college sports, are very important, from football all the way down to golf, women's volleyball, and so many others, that you have these opportunities. Not everybody's going to be a football player. Not everybody's going to be a basketball player or a baseball player for that matter. But the more sports you have, the more opportunities that you give young people to get a ability to go to college, a scholarship, to do something that they love. And even if they're not on scholarship, you give them something to do that they're passionate about, that could, maybe it leads to something else great down the line for them. Maybe it doesn't, but the fact of the matter is, I do think it's important in a revenue sharing model. If it's not too extreme, if we're trying to do a revenue sharing thing where we're doing some kind of huge, outrageous revenue split, that kills those smaller programs. But also, I will bring this up here because I've heard some criticism against Nick Saban. And I'm not going to be a Nick Saban defender or be negative towards him. I'm going to be completely neutral towards the man. A lot of people are criticizing his views on NIL and basically like, well, you got paid tens of millions of dollars a year. You're going and living in your multi-million-dollar mansion down in Florida on the beach. And, who are you to say, that college players, college athletes that work so hard shouldn't get paid? And I think a lot of people are missing the point there, that Saban is very passionate about students, about young players, young people in general, that he wants them to have a positive outlook for their life. He wants them to have a great life. And he loves college sports. He loves universities, academics, and all that. And he knows that that's very, very important and very crucial, very critical. And he really doesn't want to see sports and academics be split, and for it to turn into something that it's never been. And I understand that. And as we go into the future, I really think that a Nick Saban would be great for a commissioner of college football. If that position, if that organization was to be created, I think you have to get somebody like Nick Saban, or get Nick Saban himself to be the commissioner of that. And I think he would settle all these things. And I think for the future, athletics as a whole, not just football, would be better off. But other than that, thank you for watching. My name is Brandon Taylor. We'll see you in the next one.